So on Monday I made a World of Tanks video about the new Italian Heavies, and I didn't include the tier 8 premium, and that's because I was going to include it in its own video, and that is today. So today I'll be giving you the rundown on everything you need to know about this tank, including its gun and armor statistics, as well as what this tank is, and then talking about my opinion on what I think about the Progetto C45 Mod 71. But before I get into this video, I just want to say 70% of you guys watching are not subscribed. So if you want to see me, a World of Tanks YouTuber who uploads World of Tanks content a little bit behind the other World of Tanks YouTubers, feel free to like and subscribe. I also do other games on this channel that you might like. Anyways, let's dive right into the video. So what actually is the Progetto C45 Mod 71? Well, this tank is a concept of a combat vehicle which was planned by Italian designers who were looking at and pretty much copying German designs, mainly the Leopard 1 tank series which Germany started developing after the war. Italian designers developed a whole host of different vehicles with significantly increased combat weight and a very low profile. To add to this, the tank would have seen huge armor protection upgrades from the likes of what was in World War II Italian tanks, with the likes of spaced armor returning in Italian tanks ever since they were removed in World War II or after World War II in Italian vehicle. This tank will be a very strong tank, especially because it sees the return of spaced armor, and the combination of the additional protection shields or screens on this tank make this tank very protected, especially on the cheek and where the spaced armor is, and makes it very well protected against high explosive rounds coming from big derp gun tanks. Similar to the Super Pershing in World of Tanks, because that tank also has a very nice amount of spaced armor in the form of spaced out sheets, which are very good against HE. So anyways, let's get right into the gun about this tank. So in the gun statistics segment, I'll be talking about the tank's gun, and then I'll be comparing it to 3 other tanks: the Object 252U Defender, the IS-3, and the Renegade. The gun stats for the Progetto C45 are very strong. In fact, they are better than the tier 8 in the tech tree, or the tech tree variant of the Italian Heavies at tier 8. At tier 8, this tank does a whopping 2000 damage per minute, which I think is pretty good, and it's fairly overkill for tier 8. And it also has fairly decent penetration of 218mm. The damage per shot is mediocre, being 360 HP of damage per shot, but this is pretty standard for a tier 8 heavy tank and other medium tanks in World of Tanks. However, you must note that this is an auto-loading or auto-reloading heavy tank, which means its damage per shot is on par with the likes of the French heavy tanks, which do about 300 damage per shot, but they have the clip potential, and this tank from a clip of 3 shells will do 1080 HP of damage in 6 seconds. That's like half your health gone in 6 seconds. That's like 2 more shots in an Object 252U Defender and you've finished it off. That is very good, and that's before the Object 252 can get a shot into you. Anyways, let's get back into the gun statistics for this tank, mainly the penetration on its shells, the ones that are 218mm of penetration on the standard rounds, and then the premium, which is 270mm. We don't need to talk about the HE in this part because it's not really that useful. We're talking about the standard rounds and, of course, those bastard premium rounds. So looking closely, we get the tank can fire on average 5.69 shells a minute with a reload time of 10.55 seconds per shell. The tank can also carry 60 shells in its whole magazine or in its whole tank, which, thinking about it, is absolutely crazy, and I'll tell you why. This tank does a whopping 21,600 damage from its whole armament for all its shells. Putting it this way, if you had a team full of 15 Object 252U Defenders in World of Tanks against one of these, and the defenders had no ammunition and could only run away or ram you to death, you could kill 14 and a half of those defenders, or 14 and 1/3 of those defenders on the enemy team, which to me, that is absolutely crazy. And then when we talk about the premium shell penetration on these tanks, which is 270mm, that's pretty fair to say that it's pay to win, being better than the 265mm on the very good Object 252U Defender and the 225mm on the IS-3, as well as the premium rounds on the Renegade, which do 255mm of penetration on premium rounds. You could pretty much slice through frontal armor of almost every tier 10 tank in the game with the penetration on these rounds. To me, that is absolutely crazy. We also need to factor in this tank also has 10 degrees of gun depression, which means that is also extremely strong, especially when we're going to be talking about the armor of this tank in the next section. So let's talk about that. So the armor of this tank is actually fairly simple if you look at the average armor statistics for the vehicle. So for the hull armor, you get 135mm on the front, 75mm on the side, and 30mm on the rear of the tank. Which, well, that's pretty meh for a heavy tank, is it not? On the turret, it's the same story. 185mm on the front of the turret, 80mm on the side, and 50mm on the rear. But looking at the actual model, the actual visual model of the tank, and the information that Wargaming have provided us, we can see a different story. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to hop into tanks.gg and I'm going to talk about the hull armor and some of the weak spots that you will be looking out for when this tank goes live, as well as some areas which should be a concern to you on the live visual model. Anyways, let's get right into tanks.gg. Right, here we are in tanks.gg and we have the visual model, or the collision model for the tank. You can have a look at the visual model here. Looks very nice, doesn't it? It's a very nice looking tank and it's very aesthetically pleasing for World of Tanks. To me, it's a very modern tank, but you can also start to see here you've got these plates which look very strong. So let's hop over into the live model, which is something that I want to talk about, but the collision model is probably better to talk about it to you. So when we're talking about the turret of this tank, it is very strong. You've got areas of 192 to 200mm of effective armor. The gun shield is 200mm and the actual gun shield itself is about 300mm thick in some areas, which is absolutely insane. 400mm there. On the cheeks, you get 197mm and 232mm of armor there as well. In some areas, you get some really strong areas, especially on the bottom part of the turret. You see 230 to 440. You definitely don't want to be shooting into the gun shield of this tank because, well, you're shooting at a lost cause right there. You get 30% chances on here with the 239mm of armor, which is at a 21 degrees angle. The hull is actually very weak. However, it is also very sloped. If you look at this slope here, that's pretty much an automatic ricochet from most angles. However, it should be pretty fine. Up here it's more ricochet, but down here you can actually penetrate the armor, which is very good. But when we go into the live and we have it from here, you can see that it's actually a fairly strong tank, and well, it's also fairly weak with its armor. It can be penetrated fairly well, so I think that people should have a good time being able to penetrate the armor on this tank. And if worst comes to worst, you have 130mm of side armor and 30 of rear hull armor, which is very easy to penetrate. So yeah, I feel like the hull armor on this tank is fairly strong, but it's something that you should be concerned about when you are looking at this tank. I should definitely recommend you shoot at the lower glacis or here on these upper cheeks right there on the tank. They're small, but it's a very easy place to get your shots into, and obviously you can't actually shoot the cupola because it's actually got no armor model there. Right, so there we have it, the Progetto C45 Mod 71. I know I took quite a while there talking about the tank's hull armor. That's my first time going over a tank's visual model, and I know I probably messed it up. I know other YouTubers like Quickie Baby Des Games and Circon and all that could probably talk about that in more detail. So if you have some tips for me, I'm gonna probably go back and learn some of the stuff regarding looking at the visual model and the collision model of the hulls, because, well, I want to make these videos better for you guys. Anyways, to me, I believe this tank is going to be quite a strong vehicle. Like I said, its hull armor is very strong, but you have to factor in this one thing. Those plates above or around the turret. Even though the turret armor is fairly good and you can get shots into it that will penetrate, those shields will negate that and make it very much stronger, and it's something that you should be concerned about. Like I said, there are areas of this tank which are weak, but if this is in a hull down position, it is very strong, and if it's firing premium shells, it is a blatantly OP tank. Hull down firing premium shells, like the Super Pershing back when it was first released and it had to be nerfed. A premium tank being nerfed, that's something you don't see every day. But anyways guys, let me know what you think about this tank. I think it's fairly good, but I can see this being a very strong tank situationally, and I feel like this could push the meta for World of Tanks a little bit higher than the Object 252U Defender, which is already a notoriously OP heavy tank in the game. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. And yeah, if you want to see the video about the actual full line of heavy tanks, me going over the gun stats, what the tanks are like, and some other stuff, go watch my video on Monday. Friday's video is probably going to be a video about a dinosaur game or something like that, so stick around for that if you enjoy dinosaur games. Anyways guys, I'll catch you all later, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.